Okay, right, we're recording. Well, hello, welcome to August Friends webinar. I hope you had a nice summer. Just a pity we couldn't get more of you back on here tonight, but my diary is getting increasingly busy, so trying to find things. But I have scheduled Friends webinars into my diary from now to the end of the year, so hopefully you've all got that and you can pencil the dates into your own diary, and hopefully that'll mean that we get a bit more people on the webinars. Right, so just me and Fiona at the minute, so Fiona's going to have to do lots of work, and hopefully you'll all catch up later. So what I thought we could do tonight is that recently there have been a couple of dreams that were sent into the dream house that have been a little bit different from the norm. So I thought we could have a look at them and see what we think and what we would send back to each of these dreamers. So let me see if I can remember how to do this. I want to share my screen and I want this one. So hopefully, Fiona, you can see this. Yeah, and I've remembered to convert it into a Word file so that all the words should appear on the screen. So this is all the information that this particular dreamer sent me. The dreamer's a female. Can't remember off the top of my head what her name is, but that's neither here nor there at the minute. So the dream says, we were riding bikes together down our old street where we lived when we first started dating 6 years ago. And he is riding alongside me, but it's like I can feel and sense him and can almost see him, but he isn't 100% there. And he starts to get ahead of me and I pedal to speed past him and I'm smiling. And I turn back to see him and he is gone. But I just ride my bike fast, still going straight, and I never turn back again to look. But I feel confused and broken-hearted, but calm at the same time. And the only other details that I got was that the dreamer said was in full colour. And this man in the dream is the father of the dreamer's 2-year-old daughter. They were together for 6 years and he died on the 29th of June this year. And it was, I'm trying to think, yeah, it would have been about 4 or 5 weeks later that she had this dream. So, what are your initial thoughts, Fiona?
First of all, that she's the focus of it.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it's been given for comfort. That for all that he has died, she hasn't lost everything that was their life together. Interesting that it's the bikes rather than, you know, anything bigger. It makes it more personal, and that it's about the two of them as individuals and not what they would be carrying for, you know, more. I'm wondering about it being from where they stayed 6 years ago when they started dating, and I'm wondering if that's whether it's just trying to show that everything is included, but I'm dithering on that one.
Okay, so my first question would be, you know, on the courses we talk about there being 3 places that dreams can come from. So they can come from God, they can come from the enemy, or they can come from the person themselves. What do you think, or what do you feel is the origin of this dream?
feels like a God dream.
It feels like a God dream, yeah. And I think it is. I forgot what I was going to say now. Yeah, because it happened so close to when the person died, what we also need to be aware of is that sometimes dreams like this can be part of the natural grieving process. But I think, as you said it earlier, Fiona, that there is an element of comfort from this. So I think it'd be, in some senses, it feels like there's a combination. It's partly from her, but partly from God as well, going, yeah, this is what has happened. So in terms of what you would say to the dreamer then, what kind of phrases or words do you think we could use in this particular interpretation?
A dream that's been given to comfort you, that you will carry with you some of your memories and knowledge of, who he was, but you are going to carry on and your life will continue as, as a good thing. And although it's hard, you are going to be okay.
Yeah, because it is that phrase at the end, I just ride my bike fast, still going straight. So it's letting her see she stays on the path that she's on. I don't turn back and look, but I feel confused and brokenhearted, but calm at the same time.
Yeah.
So it is that there's that sense of hope. So that's how I would approach it. But how would the interpretation differ if we had gone very strictly with the sort of formula, if you like, that we get taught in streams in terms of figuring out the focus and the sub-focuses? Would that have changed the interpretation any?
Would probably have focused more on the father of her child, if I'd gone more with that. But other than that, most of it wouldn't change. It would just have not quite a split focus, but he would be such a large part of the
you would go into a lot more about, you're recognizing that he's not there anymore, and so you could quite easily put a more negative slant on it, because there is that temptation to focus on the fact that he was there, he's been there for 6 years, and now he's not there anymore. Whereas, so that would be more stating the obvious for her, if you like. Whereas by focusing on the reason that the dream was sent, which was to help her in her grieving process and to give her encouragement and to bring her comfort, that there will come a point, where she can move forward, and focusing more on that. I think that's more helpful to the dreamer than getting caught in this little trap, if for want of a better phrase, of focusing on, but you were together and he was alongside you, and but he's just not there anymore, he's gone. That could be seen as less helpful to the dreamer. So as I say, this is one that I felt was quite good to look at in terms of developing your own ability to interpret dreams, because it is so different. It's unusual for us to get dreams like this coming in where the grief is still so raw. I did mean to look up the date that the dream had come in before the call came, but I forgot. But it was certainly at the end of July or the very beginning of August at the very latest. So we are only talking a matter of weeks since this death had occurred. But we've no knowing about, you know, what happened. Had he been ill? Was it an accident? You know, we don't know any of that. So we simply have to go with what the dream has said, and focus on the comfort bit there. Right. So that was one dream that came in. We do have another one that came in around about the same kind of time, but it is rather different. So, this one, the dreamer gave this one a title, and it says, "The enemy wants to turn my eyes completely black." And in terms of the colour, they've said that it was a natural colour dream. It wasn't radiant colour. Okay. And I think that gives us some insight into something that happens later in the dream. Okay. So the dream says, "I had a dream that I was looking in my parents' bathroom mirror in our house. As I was looking in the mirror, I noticed my left eye turn black. So I decided to immediately blink with my left eye. Once I did so, my left eye looked normal again. Then my right eye began to turn black. I immediately blinked with my right eye. Then my right eye looked normal again. Normal eyeballs are supposed to look. All of a sudden, I noticed some black substance underneath both of my eyelids, trying to overtake my eyes. Then I heard a voice saying, 'Get out.' As I was in my parents' house, I live with my parents. Then I wanted to leave my parents' house when I heard the voice telling me to do so. I wanted to move in with my big older brother, but I wanted to leave wearing jean pants instead of the shorts I was currently wearing in the dream." So, again, part of the issue with this is it was written by somebody that I don't think English is their first language. So we've got to do a little bit of deciphering of that as well. So, what do you think about this, Fiona?
Not sure, still thinking.
Okay, so let's break it down then. Focus.
Dreamer.
Yeah. So we've got 1 point sorted.
Yes.
What do we think about some sub-focuses then?
Mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Eyes.
Yeah.
Voice, and if I'm going to be really cheeky to get an extra one, something from the end. But
Uh-huh.
I am curious about the jeans rather than the shorts.
Yeah. Okay. What about the blah 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 blah. Right. I think I might have been tempted to put in there the parents' house as well. Because
that's the sub-focus of the mirror.
Well, it's a sub-focus of the mirror, but it's also connected with the voice as well.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that it's, well, it's near the end, but she says, I live with my parents. So it's their house, but it was in their bathroom. And at the end, also, when she hears this voice, it wasn't that she just had to get out of that one room. Her initial response was, I've got to leave the whole house.
Yeah.
But again, you could have that as an important detail of the mirror and the voice. I think you would end up in the same place.
Yeah.
But those things there. Right, so what about some details then?
The blackness,
Mm-hmm.
the blinking.
Yeah.
In fact, it was going to older brother's house.
Yeah.
It's interesting that it's the mirror in the parents' bathroom.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's what's meant there.
Yeah. Okay, so next question would be, where do we feel is the source of this dream? Does this feel like a God dream?
The little bit at the end of "but I wanted to leave wearing jean pants instead of shorts" that she was currently wearing makes me wonder if, although it is a dream from the enemy, that even in her dreaming she has enough awareness from God to challenge, but it just doesn't have enough hope in it.
Yeah.
It feels that she's aware enough to be fighting against the dream when it's sent, but it's still being sent by the enemy.
Yeah. Because I think if you look at the title that the dreamer gave the dream as well, it makes me think she's got a feeling that this didn't come from God, or at least the plans or what is being talked about in the dream hasn't come from God. Yeah. So I think the key, certainly for me when I was looking at this dream initially, to unlock this dream was to spend some time thinking and meditating about, where did this voice come from? Now the voice just says get out, but get out of where? Her immediate response in the dream was that she had to get out of the whole house, but potentially it could mean get out of this dream, it could mean get out of this room, or it could mean get out of the house. But the voice only said those two words, get out. So her reaction was to think, I need to get out of the house, because that's what she heard the voice telling her to do, or assumed that was what the voice was telling her to do. So that's tied back, I think, with the beginning of the dream, the fact that it's her parents' house, and that what she was seeing was in her parents' bathroom mirror. So what can we glean from the fact that it was the mirror in the bathroom that her parents used, rather than, say, a mirror in a bathroom that she regularly used?
Either something of how she is seen by her parents, or, you know, seeing how she is seen by previous generations, depending on what it went. But it feels more that it's about her parents rather than the family as a whole. Because by the end of it, it's looking at older brother rather than out of the family.
Yeah.
At all. So, you know, more of how she almost sees herself through her parents' way of seeing her.
Yeah. Yeah. And is the dream trying to tell her that this is a good thing or a bad thing?
The fact that her whites of her eyes are turning black feels negative.
Yeah, so it's not a good thing.
No.
But it's not something that she can't overcome, because in the dream it says that she blinked and it turned back to normal. So it's not something that's permanent. It's not damage that's been done that's irreparable.
It isn't at that point, but there is this sense when it's all of a sudden I notice some black substance underneath both my eyelids trying to overtake my eyes, and it almost feels as if that had been allowed to continue, that there might not have been a fix in that. And therefore there is that, no, you need to get out of that situation before that carries on.
Yeah. So it leaves us with the question. I was going to say dilemma, but it's not really a dilemma. It's more of a simple question. Is this thing that's happening, is it the enemy trying to instill a lie into the dreamer about, this is how your parents see you, they see you, or is it the truth of what's actually happening? Do her parents actually see her like this? Or is it the enemy going, well, you know what? Your mum and dad, this is how they see you. It's not really good. So that's a big question, I think, as we look at this dream. I think that's one of the things we need to bear in mind. Because you yourself, Fiona, said that there doesn't seem to be much hope in this dream.
Yeah, and I think that the eyes turning black are not the reality. That feels like a ploy of the enemy rather than what's actually going on.
Yeah. So if that's a lie of the enemy, where does that leave us then with the voice that's saying get out?
I think it's get out as in get out of the mindset of what the enemy's saying.
Yeah.
Rather than get out of, the relationship, or that's how they're, it's feeling like get out of that way of seeing things.
Yeah. Because if you take that voice literally as being get out of the the house or the relationship with your parents, who benefits from that?
Only the enemy.
Only the enemy. Yeah. So we've got to bear that in mind. And it then goes, I wanted to move in with my older brother. So we don't know, she doesn't say anything about who her older brother is or what her relationship is with him, but that could be, you know, simply encouraging her to get close to Jesus. But yeah, but then we're left with this sentence that you were curious about at the beginning. So have you had any more thought about it?
It feels like in getting out of that way of seeing, she's going to be walking more fully in who she was created to be. That this is something that's actually holding her back, and she wants to walk out of that and stop seeing it in that way, but in a way that's better, rather than just getting out of it without getting to know more of who she is, almost.
Yeah. And there's also a possibility that you could read into that she wants to leave on her own terms. You know, she's been told to get out, but she's not just going to do it immediately. It's like, no, I'm going to do this, but I want to leave doing this. But we don't know if she actually changed her clothes or if she left immediately or what she did, because we don't have any more of the dream than that. So it was just a question that's left there. So again, well, looking at this, we've kind of unpacked all the potential bits. What would you say to this dreamer? What would your interpretation be if they were sitting in front of you right now?
That this is a dream that has been, that shows you that the enemy's trying to make you believe that your parents see you in a way that they don't, but you actually can control that. You don't have to believe that they see you that way when they don't. However, the dream is making sure you know that you need to make the decision to get out of that belief before anything sticks more with it. Yeah, I'm wondering whether at the end of that to say, you know, you can do that on your own terms. It's feeling like a clunky interpretation, so it's bugging me.
Yeah,
This is why I like to rewrite it at least 4 times before I do anything with it.
Would we say, or you know, if you were talking to the dreamer and they were in front of you, would you say anything about where the dream has come from?
I think that would depend very much on the person. You know, without having some sense of how aware they are spiritually and where they are with things, would really change how I would phrase that. And some of that would come from, you know, how they, you know, there's a huge difference in dealing with a dream like this where you're at a spiritual fair and there's a good chance that the person just isn't quite sure where, you know, they are spiritually in the spectrum, these someone who's in a church and already gets that, and it's finding wording when you have no inkling of.
Okay, so if this person was somebody that you'd met at a spiritual fair, okay, and as far as you were aware they had no Christian background, what would you say to them about this dream?
Probably similar to what I had said, but phrased better, and probably highlight a little bit of I wanted to move in with my big older brother, that there is, there is a figure that would offer her that sort of safety and protection. Well, wouldn't phrase it quite like that, but
yeah,
that alternative.
where you want it to be. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what about then if you were told that this was quite a mature Christian who has been rooted in a church for a number of years? What would you say to them? How would your interpretation differ?
Going far more straight down the line of, this feels like it's a dream where the enemy's trying to convince you of your parents seeing you in a way that's not good. However, it's clear through the dream that you have the spiritual maturity to challenge what the enemy's trying to show you, and that you don't have to, that you should, that you know that stopping seeing it that way is what you need to do, and that in getting closer to Jesus, you'll get out of that way of seeing the situation. Yeah,
that was quite a good interpretation there. What I do know about this dreamer is, because they've said, and I think I've had maybe 3 or 4 dreams from them now, is that one of the other, she is a strong Christian. One of the other dreams that was definitely from God was a calling dream for her, saying that she should be in a teaching role, and now which was it? I think it was prophetic. It was either prophetic ministry or healing ministry, but something like that. God was calling her into that. So very soon after she'd received the interpretation to that dream, which was telling her, this is God's calling on your life, this is what you're supposed to be doing, start moving into it, she gets this from the enemy that's going, oh, but other people see you like this. How, it was almost like he was saying, how can you possibly see yourself as a teacher, or how could you possibly see yourself as a healer, or whatever it was, when you even your own parents see you like this. So it did come quite quickly, and it was almost like the enemy was trying to take away any positive message that she'd received from the previous dream, which was, God wants you to do this, God's encouraging you to do this next thing. And then it was like that, but nobody's going to believe you, even your parents don't think, so I think the reason I wanted to pick up that one tonight was simply to let you see, this is what dreams from the enemy can look like. It's not completely black and white, and it's not grayscale, but the dreamer said it definitely wasn't radiant colour. And the main colours that she did mention, it was black. So that's what I was trying to let you see with this one, and also the point that we can't assume that just because the voice said get out, and that seemed like a good thing, that it was actually the right thing for the dreamer to do, in terms of she had to move out of her parents' house, which was her automatic reaction within the dream. I think in the interpretation that I sent back to her, I put the onus back on her and said, you need to go back to God and ask, was that voice from him?
Mm.
And if it was, what does he want you to get out of? And said, I think I said, if he is actually telling you to move out of your parents' home, you will have other confirmations. Don't do it just based on this one dream.
Mm-hmm.
But as I say, I did put the onus back on her and say, you had this dream. Your responsibility as the dreamer is to go back to God and ask for the origin of that voice.
Mm.
I have my suspicions, but at the time I sent the interpretation, I didn't have what I felt was enough clarity to say for definite, this is the voice of the enemy, or this is the voice of God, or this is your own voice. But because I knew she was a Christian, I had that freedom to go back and say, take this to God, ask him, and then develop and say, if it is moving out the parents' house, you'll get other confirmations. Don't do it just on the basis of this one dream. Because otherwise, she could end up with nowhere to stay, and then come back and go, but you said, like, no, I'm not willing to take that responsibility. Double check that. And that is the kind of thing that God would do, is that if he is telling you to make a big change like that, there will be other things. He'll point you to scripture. You'll get prophetic words about it. You'll have a sense in yourself that this is the right time to move out. It wouldn't just be a dream. There would be more than just that. So again, if you get dreams where it seems like there's some kind of directive within that, be very careful how you relay that to the dreamer. Because there's always the possibility we could be wrong. And I think it's back to is it in the dream course, or is it in the advanced workshop? I can't remember now. But one of them talk of no dates, no mates, no hatches, no matches, no dispatches. So yeah, it's one of these things, again, just to beware of, unless you've got really, really clear revelation from God about what that voice is actually saying. And it's obvious if it's a message from God or not, then again, be careful how you encompass that into your interpretation. So that's that. One other dream that I was going to talk about tonight. This is not one that was sent into the dream house per se. It happened over a cup of coffee yesterday at work. So I was talking to one of my colleagues. No, there's two of them there. And one of them happened to say, oh, I had this weird dream last night. And the other colleague that was there said, oh, Heather does dream interpretation, tell her about it. And so he said one that was from the night before. It was very short, very simple, easy to interpret. And I think he was given that the night before simply to open up the conversation. Because after I'd given him the interpretation to that first dream, he then opened up about a dream he'd had about 6 weeks ago, in which he said that he dreamt he was going to die on the 29th of September. And he was really quite concerned about that, because the date was so specific in his dream, and he said, that was all he said about it. But then he remembered that actually in the same dream he dreamt about another colleague of ours who works in Northern Ireland, and in the dream he knew that she was having really difficult personal circumstances in her family. And the next day he got an email from her that was saying, I'm going to have to take time off work for a couple of weeks, and explained why she needed that, and it was related to family circumstances. So he read into that, I'm right about this bit in that particular dream. Am I right about dying on the 29th of September as well? So the other bit of information you need to know before you start unpacking that a little bit is that he is due to retire on the 30th of September, or he was due to retire. He's agreed to stay on for another 2 or 3 weeks. But at the point he had the dream, his retirement date was the 30th of September. So, what are you going to do with that one, Fiona?
Go down the route of death in a dream is rarely an actual death, but it can be a stopping of a part of what you do, and with it being the last day of work before retirement, it would fit really well with being the end of the time of working. But I would also probably within that be saying that it's something that was sort of encouraging and hopeful about it means that there's a chance to do something new rather than everything stopping, and basically make sure that I was speaking a sense of hope into the next after retirement.
Mm-hmm. Yep, which is what I did. And then he went, but why did I know the other stuff about this other colleague? And why was it right? Because if it was right, then the other bits must be right as well. That was his next question.
Well, it's by the time you've got something in a dream that is really helpful for understanding what someone else is going, it gives you both the ability to be forewarned for that and the assurance that dreams actually have meaning. However, dreams are symbolic, and it's understanding that not everything is literal in it, and that just because one part is literal, it doesn't mean that the rest will be literal.
Yeah, so those are the kinds of questions that people can start asking. We were sitting in a cafe in a public place, and this conversation opened up in front of me, and I'm like, okay, God, what do you want me to do with this? I have no idea who's hearing this conversation. Yeah. Thankfully, at that point, a number of the people were sort of elderly and a bit bottled. There was one guy who kept trying to escape out the fire escape. But there were staff members of this establishment going around as well, and we were guests in there, we were volunteers. I'm trying to think, okay, how do I answer this but without offending other people who might be listening, or divulging anything that's too intimate, or asking questions of this colleague of mine that he might not want to answer in the setting. So be prepared for anything. Because I was in this place yesterday to paint the floors. I wasn't there to interpret dreams.
Yeah, how often does that work out?
Yeah. So it is just learning to be more open and to go with conversations and not to be too embarrassed when, you know, it's like, oh, these are work colleagues, what do I say here, what do I do? Yeah, if God's opened the door, just walk through it, but try not to put your foot in your mouth. So yeah, so those were the 3 dreams I wanted to have a wee look at tonight. Thanks for your help with that, Fiona, and I hope the people who watch this on the webinar at a later date find that interesting as well. Just before we sign off, a quick recap in terms of upcoming events. There is the event in Lanark in a couple of weeks' time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. They haven't finalised the time for the event on the Friday evening yet, which is going to be the training event. But in terms of the outreach on the Saturday, it's going to happen from 10:30 till 12:30. So it's going to be a couple of hours. And what I'm hoping is going to happen is that we will have enough friends of the Dream House there to be sort of team leaders for 2 or 3 teams. So if you've already told me that you're coming, then I have you earmarked as being a team leader that day. So hopefully that's given you a couple of weeks to sort of get used to that idea and prepare for that. But also remember that the people who are going to be on team with you will have had very limited experience of dream interpretation. So I will be expecting you to help them along the road a wee bit, as you know, as I do with you guys. So it's like, I'm on this rung, you're on that rung, and they're on the rung below you. So you're helping them move up to the level that you're at just now. But as soon as I get confirmation of the timings for the Friday night, I will let you know what's happening with that. I would guess it would be round about 2 to 2.5 hours. But I don't know that for definite yet. And again, what I'm hoping to do with that is have some practical exercises, so we get the teams practicing on the Friday night as well. So if you've got any short dreams you would like them to work on, feel free to bring those with you on the night as well. And then what we'll do is we'll give your dreams to teams that you're not in. Okay, so that would be helpful. Any questions about that? No? Happy? Yeah. And then just a reminder, towards the end of September and the first weekend in October, we've got the Signs, Wonders, Healings and Miracles course. I think it's all up and running now. We've got the workbooks have been delivered. All the video, most of the videos now have subtitles. I think there's 1 or 2 still to go. But yeah, so if you know of anybody else that might be interested in coming, please feel free to let them know. I think at the minute we've got 5 people signed up, so we've still got plenty of space to the people who want to come. Okay, so other than that, thank you very much for your time this evening or whenever you're watching it online, and I will see you again in, what month is this? This is August, so I'll see you again in September. Have a great month till then. Bye for now.